Okay, so let's do problem number 1. Problem number 1 asks, if you square -9, what would you get? And so when we're looking at squaring -9, since it's in parentheses, that'd be -9 times -9, which -9 times -9 is positive 81. So the first answer would be A. If you just type this in on your calculator, like this, it's going to give you -81, which isn't true, because this one has parentheses and this one doesn't. So if you added in the parentheses, like it has on the question, you get the correct answer. So just make sure on this thing that you realize that the parentheses tell you that you want to square the -9, and if it doesn't have parentheses, it wants you to square the 9. Let's do the next question. So we got a word problem. So we're going to kind of read through it and try to set up the equation. It says two friends are paying rent in an apartment. They pay a landlord the first month's rent. So as soon as I see like they pay the landlord the first month's rent, I'm thinking, what is the first month's rent? Well, I don't know what the first month's rent, so I'm going to say M for the first month's rent. They also pay, well, as soon as they say also, I know they're going to add something to this rent. Additional half month's rent. Well, again, I don't know the month's rent, so this would be half a month's rent. And then the total amount, so it should all equal 1,725. Well, if you notice, my equation here isn't any of these equations there. So you might go, well, what do I do with this? You want to change, like over 2 can also be a half this way. So this is the correct equation and the correct answer. Let's solve through just to double check and make sure that one's right. So M plus 0.5M will give you 1.5M equals 725. And then when you divide by 1.5 and you divide by 1.5, you'll notice that you get 1725 divided by 1.5. And we get the answer that we should have got there. So just make sure when you're doing this problem that you try to read through and then find the individual pieces of information. Let's do the next one. Okay, so let's solve this problem. The first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to distribute those parentheses. So I'm going to move this a little bit over. But the first thing we want to do is distribute over the parentheses. You might go, well, do I distribute the 14? Nope, because you have that minus sign in between. So you're actually going to distribute that minus sign, or that -1. So we're going to get 14 minus 2x minus 5 equals -2x plus 9. And now we're going to get all the x's on the same side. So I'm going to add 2x to this side. I'm going to add 2x to this side. And they are both going to cancel. So I'll have 14 minus 5 equals 9. And then 14 minus 5 is 9. And 9 equals 9. Well, those are the same numbers. So I literally have 9 equals 9. And to that statement, I go, I know. Of course 9 equals 9. So you go, well, what's my solution? Well, it's not 9. Like, you'd have to have, like, x equals something to be that. And it's not 0. Because, again, to get that, it'd be like x equals something. You might be tempted to say no solution. But it's not no solution, because this is a solution. This is actually the identity. What an identity means is it's all solutions, or it literally is the same thing, like it is its identity. So that would be the answer to that question. Let's go to the next one. Okay, we have a parallel line question. And the first thing you should know if the lines are parallel is that should happen, right? Like the line should be the same, or they should have the same slope. So right off the bat, C and D are done. Like I don't even need to worry about them. And now there's two ways you could do this. You could actually find the parallel line, or you could just check which of the two multiple choices would work. In this case, I'm just going to check which of the two multiple choices would work. So a lot of people are generally tempted to pick A, because they see the 5 there and they see the 5 there. But that's not how points work. Points work that if you plug in an x, you should get the y value. So let's check. We're going to plug in this x into there and check if we get the y value. So that means y would equal -2 times -3 plus 5. Well, -2 times -3 would be 6, and 6 plus 5 would be 11. And the question is, does 11 equal the 5 that we were supposed to get? And the answer is no. So A can't work. So it'd have to be B. But let's double check to make sure it's B. That would be -2 times -3 plus 5. Well, that would give me 6, or whoops, I typed in B wrong. B is -2, it's that one. So we'll do -1, there we go. So that'd be 6 minus 1, 6 minus 1 is 5, and look, that is that one. So B is your correct answer. Again, with these things, you should just realize parallel lines mean they're the same, so just check out which ones are the same, and then get rid of the ones that aren't the same, and then plug in your point to check which one is the correct one. Let's do the next. Same idea, except perpendicular, instead of them being the same like parallel, they're like this. So perpendicular means opposite, or exact opposite, so this one has a slope of 1 over 1, so the perpendicular would have a slope of -1 over 1. You flip the slope and make it negative. So A can't be right because that actually has the same slope. So we'd have to check this one, this one, this one. So there's 3 to check. The explanation, if you look back on the last problem, it's the same explanation on this problem. But the explanation for that is, if you have an x value and you plug in the x value, you should get the y value you're looking for. So we'll start with B. -4 plus 6 gives me 2. So that doesn't work because that's not the right one. So let's look at the second one. -4 plus 10 equals 6. So this is the right one. I'm going to check the last one to just show you that it doesn't work. So that'd be -4 minus 10, which would give you -14. So of course that doesn't work. So again, this has to be the correct answer. So for perpendicular, figure out which one's slope is the opposite, and then after you do that, then you can just check by plugging in the points. Let's try the next one. Okay, so we just have to solve this one. Biggest mistake people want to do is they want to add 3 to both sides. Do not do that. 3 is a positive number, so 3 plus 3 would give you 6. You want to subtract 3 from both sides. That's going to give you -x is less than -5. And then since I have a negative from the x, I'm going to divide by -1, which is going to give me x. Well, when you divide by a negative with an inequality, it actually flips the sign, and then you get +5, so D would be the correct answer. So just be careful when you're doing all the things on the problem like this. If you got a number in front, it's just subtract. And then when you divide by a negative, it flips the sign. The negative can't go away until you divide it. Like that, negative's in front of the x. The easier way for this to be written is this was the same problem that we just solved. They just moved the symbols around. Let's try the next one. Okay, so for this problem, we're going to solve the proportion, so we're going to actually just cross multiply. So that, when you multiply the 2, the big question is, does the 2 affect the x, the 4, or both? And the answer to this is both. Like it really is doing this when you cross multiply. So that is going to give us 2x plus 8. This is going to give us 8x plus 8. We're going to get all the numbers to the same side. So that's going to be -6x equals 0. And I did 2 steps here at once. So first I got all the x's to the left-hand side by minusing the x's over, and I got the numbers to the right-hand side by minusing the numbers over here. And what I ended up getting was -6x equals 0. And I'll divide by -6, divide by -6, and x equals 0. Now you might be tempted to put no solution, but this is the solution. This is the solution, x equals 0. So if you plug in 0, you'll get the same answer for this. Let's try the next one. Okay, we'd like to solve for w, and this is really what we have for the problem. I don't like that they write multiplication signs that way, so I'm going to write them like this. Now we're going to solve. Now we want to get W by itself, so you got to ask yourself, what's happening to W? And what's happening to W is it's being times by L and it's being times by H. So you go, how do you undo that? Well, I divide. Now the real problem that some students get into is they go, which do I divide first? Do I divide the L first, or the H first, or do I divide both at once? Like, how do I get rid of them? And the answer is, you divide both of them at once. And the reason you do that is because if they were actually numbers, you could just multiply L and H together and then divide it over. That's what you would actually do. So we're going to divide them both at the same time because L and H are really going to become just one number. So then your answer would be A over LH equals W. And that is the correct answer. Let's try the next one. Okay, I bought some fencing. Purchased 62 feet to enclose all four sides. The width is 2 less than the length. Find the width of the thing. So the first thing you're going to want to do is draw your rectangle. You know you're looking for all four sides. And then I always start with a variable. And it goes, find the length and the width. But everything is in terms of the width, right? Like the width of the garden is 2 less than twice the length. Or I guess everything's in terms of the length because the width is 2 less than twice the length. So we're going to have the lengths for both these, and then we're going to find our width. So our width is 2 less than twice the length. So if we took the length and we doubled it, and it's 2 less, which would be minus 2. The really big wording here is, see how, like when you say this statement, 2 less than twice the width, well, less tells you to subtract, twice tells you to multiply by 2. The length tells you what variable, so that's where I get the L, and then less 2 because that's subtracting 2. Okay, so that's where I got all the information from. Now we're going to deal with this. Well, they want to know when it's equal to 62, or if we add up all the sides, when it would equal 62. So I'm going to add up all the sides, so I'm going to add all my lengths. If you do 2 plus 1, that's 3, plus another 2 would be 5, plus 1 would be 6, so I'd have 6L. And then negative 2 plus negative 2 is negative 4, and that should equal 62. I'm going to add 4 to both sides. That's going to give me 6L equals 66, so L would equal 11, so that would be my answer right there. If my length, well, this is the only one with a length of 11, so you'd know that would be true. But you could check. You could check by plugging this in and seeing if it all equaled 62. Or if you just do some mental math, well, this side is 20, this side is 20, this side is 11, and this side is 11. That'd be 40 and 62. So you could have done that initially too. Just draw all the rectangles and check the lengths and widths and see which ones worked out. Let's do the next one. Okay, we got to find the area of the gray area. Well, how do you find the area of a rectangle? Do length times width. I guess these are both squares, but it's the same thing for a square. And then if you're thinking about how this is worked, the gray area, it's not really, it's a donut shape. And you think, how do I make a donut shape? You make a donut by having your entire thing and just taking out the middle. So if you take out the middle, that is subtraction. So we're going to take the large rectangle, or the large square, minus the small square, and that will be our answer. Well, the large square area is x plus 4 times x plus 4, and the small square is x times x. So if I multiply this out, or FOIL this out, I'm going to get that this is x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 16 minus, well, x times x gives you x squared. Well, this would be x squared minus plus 8x plus 16 minus x squared. So when I subtract the x squareds, that go away, and there would be my final answer. So the area of the gray part is 8x plus 16. Let's try the next problem. Okay, So we have to evaluate x, like x squared, when x is negative 3. So we just plug in negative 3 for x. When you plug it in, you have to put parentheses around it. And again, from the first problem, it's the same idea. It'd be negative 3 times negative 3, which is just 9. Again, you could also plug that in your calculator to check. And you would see that really is just positive 9. Let's look at the last question. Okay, so for this, we're going to write a function table. So if I look at my function table, it says write the function rule. So we're just looking at how x gets to its function or how this works. If you look at the pattern, how do you get from 1 to negative 3, 2 to negative 6, 3 to negative 9, and 4 to negative 12? And you take negative 3 and times it by its x column. But this is all times by negative 3. And that would equal your f of x column. A lot of times this column is y. In most things, like we call it an xy table. But it doesn't really matter. We can call it f of x. So your final answer would be this. Negative 3x times, or negative 3 times x equals f of x. And that would be it. If you need any more help than this, always ask questions or send me an email or let me know. This is the first day of the review, so make sure you kind of follow along and do every single day so that you are ready for the final.